leaders of the world. Welcome to Spread Love in Organizations, a podcast for purpose-driven healthcare leaders striving to make life better around the world by leading their teams with genuine care, servant leadership, and love. I'm Naji, your host today, excited to be joined by Enrique Conterno, CEO of FibroGen. A native of Peru, Enrique is a mechanical engineer with an MBA from Duke. He joined Eli Lilly in 1992 and spent the next 2 decades working in the US and across different geographies internationally in sales, marketing, finance, business development, and general management roles. Enrique became the president of Lilly Diabetes in 2009, and in addition to those responsibilities, he took on the role of president of Lilly USA in January 2017, before retiring at the end of 2019 after 27 years of service with the company. He is now the Chief Executive Officer of FibroGen. I had the privilege and chance to work in Enrique's teams, learn from him, learn from his leadership, and grow in the culture he has created. Enrique, I am so thrilled to have you with me today.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to have this chat with you, Naji.
I would love, Enrique, to learn more about your personal story, your personal journey. What is in between those lines of this incredibly successful career and the leader you are today?
Thank you. I'm not sure exactly where to start, but probably I have to start when I decided to embark on the journey outside of Peru and pursue my education in the United States. At that time, I was a swimmer, I think, and therefore I had the opportunity as a swimmer to get a scholarship or scholarships in the US. But beyond that, I think that was the start of something that I believe shaped me throughout my career, which is we have to take chances, personal chances, certain risks. It was not easy at that time for me to leave Peru, but I decided to do so. And I think throughout my career, I've taken a number of personal risks. And for the most part, I'm delighted that I took those chances. Not every single one of them worked in the way that I was expecting them. But we do have to be thoughtful, take appropriate chances, and then adapt, to changing circumstances. But I think in between the lines, we're all, I think, a product of our experiences, and I think that's something that has really shaped me. It's basically taking chances, taking certain risks, and then manage in the best way possible to produce excellent outcomes.
When you're talking, Enrique, about taking chances and risks, obviously you said you took it personally. I know as a leader also you took a lot of risk and you gave people opportunities and chances. How do you do this? How have you managed to always build successful teams, lead them towards even bigger successes for the organizations that you've led?
Yeah, there's no question that talent is at the very heart of successful organizations, and creating diverse teams, I think, is critical to do that. And I think I always reflect on, as we build teams and give people chances and the opportunity to grow, one has to reflect that somebody took the chance on us to take larger responsibilities, and in some cases maybe for us to step up in positions that maybe we thought we were not ready to take on. And we have to reflect on that as we basically provide opportunities for others. At the end, I think there's no formula when it comes to hiring people or building teams, but I do think there are a number of elements that one has to look for, and a culture that one wants to create. And we can speak a little more about that, but there's no question that people and talent are at the very heart of continued success in organizations.
Yeah, I would love to hear about those elements. I've lived it. I think the culture you built, a caring culture, I personally call it a loving culture, but really from this shared purpose, the strong values, and then leading your teams towards exceptional execution to deliver on this shared and common purpose. I'd love to hear more about the elements you shared those, but I'd love to hear more about that.
Sure. So, and you are absolutely right. I think it's all about I think centering on a common purpose and key values, and what do we basically expect from all leaders, all employees, all of our colleagues in an organization. All of that, I think, is part of starting to create a culture. To the extent that one lives those values, you start to create that culture. You try to not just retain but attract talent to the organization. Now, it's clearly, I think, there are a number of other elements that play into that. I'm a huge believer in looking at a track record of success when building teams, not just experiences, but really looking at the track records of individuals. And this sometimes can be misunderstood. Yes, we look for the outcomes, and outcomes are critical, but it's also how people dealt in many cases with failures, I think, or with maybe a hand that was not quite perfect. And what were the actions that the individual took to improve the situation, to make the situation better? As we think about that, I think we need to, and we build this culture, and you call it a loving culture, a caring culture. I think all of that is true. I like to think of it as an empowering culture. And you're right. I think the leader, in many cases, trying to serve, to ensure that people can basically give the most, given their capabilities, the opportunity that they have. I think all of that, I think, is very much true. At the end of the day, I think empowerment needs to also come with accountability. And I'm a big believer on marrying those two, which is people need to be empowered, but at the end, I think that empowerment needs to lead to increased accountability, and hopefully the organization then works, I think, in a much better way, so that everybody can contribute. As long as the priorities and the purpose is clear, I think it's everything tends to work much more effectively and efficiently.
Thanks, Enrique. And I know you're passionate about the ENI, and you mentioned it, right? Recruiting a diverse team while building this culture. Any advice, as you are bringing those leaders? Many times we are faced with some of the inclusion challenges, and I remember something you always talked about: remaining yourself, be yourself, and continue to be yourself as you're leading and in the organization. What do you do to make sure that people, as they join, don't change to be in the mold, but rather be themselves and being able to deliver to the expectations?
Yeah, discussion that I often have is that responsibility of both the leaders in the organization, but also the employees coming into the organization, to ensure that we can build an inclusive culture. It is true, we need to create that type of environment as leader, but there's also a responsibility on the person coming in, to in some cases to take that personal risk, to always be able to speak out, and quite frankly, not to just sort of come in and be just like the organization, that they're coming into. The reason we organizations can benefit so much from new blood, from fresh thinking, from new talent, new hires, is because of the unique perspective that they bring from the outside. What a pity would it be that the second they come into an organization that we lose that because they're trying to fit in. And there's no question that there is a bit of a compromise trying to fit in, but to the extent that those individuals can be true to themselves, who they are, I think we have a best chance of the organization thriving and ensuring that the individual collective growth benefits the entire organization. So yes, there's a responsibility of the leaders, and there's also a responsibility of the new hires to ensure that this culture can be built.
Pivoting now to, I know you shared and you did it on leading in crisis, even before, if we want to talk about the current pandemic. But even before that, I read one of the articles you wrote about leading through moment of crisis. So can you share more about your learning experiences, and did anything change leading in this global crisis that we're all living in?
Yeah, my sense, I think, when you're leading in a crisis, one of the key, it's always critically important to remain true to your values and to the purpose, and to understand what the North Star is for you and for the organization. Otherwise, one can get lost. Whether it's a crisis or a moment where the organization is thriving, I think we have to recognize that there are a few, I call it a few critical decisions each year that really shape the business outcomes, the people outcomes, the cultural outcomes of the organization. And being thoughtful about those decisions, I think, is critical. It's a crisis tends to challenge all of us, because maybe it was an outcome we did not expect, or an uncertainty that got resolved in an unfavorable way, or personnel exiting the organization for other opportunities. Whatever the crisis might be, I think it's always good to remember that crisis always pose opportunities in itself if we can be framed in the right way. So it could be a matter of if somebody's exiting, it's the opportunity to promote somebody, or maybe bring new talent in the organization, and how well can we do that? It may be a matter of refocusing the priorities of the organization, or for us to think about what those new priorities are. At the end of the day, though, I think one critical thing throughout crisis, we all need to be grounded, what I call the realities of the ground, the realities of the situation. I think it's critically important as a leader that we can objectively assess the situation, and at the end provide the direction for the business, on the enterprise, our people. Sometimes in crises, one tends to maybe color how things might be. It's just critically important that we don't have those rose-colored glasses, and we're able to tackle, I think, the challenges head on.
That's great. You talked about being true to the values, right? To your personal values. You started with this around the common and shared purpose, looking at it, from an opportunity standpoint. There are things to do to refocus, and then ending on objectively always assessing the situation. The communication, I imagine, you mean in this, is super important, right? Like giving hope, but at the same time being realistic to what we're going through is key, right?
It is. I think without being realistic, I think it's the change is not very lasting, because you lose credibility over time. Um, and at the end of the day, people can objectively assess what the situation is as well. So it is, I think it is critically important then that the organization at the end of the day is aligned and needs to be aligned on those in a grounded view of what the realities are, because I think the priorities are better understood. The organization can be best aligned, and at the end, I think that creates a certain builds trust, and trust is critical, I think, to be able to execute with agility and speed.
One of the things, we always talk in strategy, and I'd love your take on this. You said you had to be patient, right? You built a strategy, you believed in it. We all believed in it, and then you had to be patient. And we hear on the opposite side. So now being a CEO in a different company and in biotech, we hear a lot about agility, changing the cap, making sure that we understand what's going on and change if needed. Any thoughts about this, when to change strategy and when not to change and be persistent on it?
I think it's clearly the circumstances define what the strategy should be. A strategy should be able to overcome setbacks, but I think sometimes that's easier said than done. Some strategies might be more valuable than others. And I think we need to reassess and adjust the strategy as circumstances change, right? As you mentioned, I draw a lot from some of the challenges when we're building the diabetes business, as I think about FibroGen, where we are right now, and the fact that we have, we had a pretty significant setback when it comes to complete response letter in the US. At the same time, we've been approved in China, Europe, Japan to be able to commercialize roxadustat. So to me, I think it's clearly, as I mentioned, drawing on all of those experiences and thinking about how do we ground ourselves in the realities of the situation, how do we adjust our priorities, how do we basically think about creating significant value for our shareholders, patients, how do we keep our purpose in front of us, and once again, honestly assessing where we are and what is it that we have to focus on right now. So as leaders, I think we have to keep in mind that all of these experiences serve to ground us, right? They give us confidence for the path ahead and the ability that we can have to be able to basically forge a very successful future.
I would love to get your first reaction to a couple of words I will be saying. And the first one is leadership. What would be the first thoughts?
First thoughts on leadership is change agent, bias for action, and working towards outcomes, aligning organizations.
What about mentorship?
Mentorship being a bit different from sponsorship, but mentorship is basically providing the advice and the insights at the personal and professional level for talent to be as successful as they can be. And different from sponsorship, because sponsorship, in addition to all of that, I believe it also includes advocacy and a real action from the leader in terms of taking a hand on basically allowing for that individual to take additional jobs or responsibilities as they basically grow.
And I know you believe in reverse mentorship, I think too, right? And worked on it. Any thoughts on this too?
Yeah, it's for all of us to make sure that we are truly, at the end of the day, connected to what's going on and receive informal feedback. I've had reverse mentorship one-on-one and also multiple on one, meaning just being able to hear people. And I to do that, I think curiosity is incredibly important, and openness, the ability to really hear and try to understand as opposed to try to justify why certain things are what they are. So that's I think the power of it. But mentorship is a dual-way street, and anytime one is mentoring somebody in the way that I mentioned, one can be mentored as well if one is open to that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Vacations.
Yes.
And I'm asking this because you wrote about it.
Yeah, it's I'm a big believer on working hard and playing hard as well. And I believe all of us need to take the time and space, to refresh and replenish ourselves. And to do that, sometimes we do have to disconnect from our daily work. So allowing for the space and time to be able to do that, I think is critical. So I'm a big believer in ensuring that that balance is going to be there. Sometimes people ask me to quantify what that balance should be, but I think that balance is very personal. It's like people say, well, define for me what a work-life balance is, how many hours. I think it's different for different people. And each one of us needs to understand our own personal boundaries and what is it that allows us to basically be as effective, at work. And we have to be self-aware to be able to assess and evaluate that, right? Maybe somebody is able to work many more hours than somebody else, and we need to be able to respect those boundaries. I think what we, at the end of the day, should look for is what are the outcomes, and how are how effective is each one of us being in the positions that we have. So no hard rules, but finding that personal balance is incredibly important. And the organization cannot find this balance for you. You have to find it for yourself.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think you shared in the beginning you're a swimmer. I'm not sure if you continue to swim, but I know for a while that was also because I'm thinking about how every day, not only taking vacations, but even every day, how to disconnect, try to refresh our minds as leaders, super important for not only us, but our teams, our families. So I know for a while, swimming was part of this for you, but definitely it's important, I imagine, to disconnect daily too.
Yeah, I whether it's swimming or a different exercise, I think it's good to be active, and I'm a pretty big believer. For a while, I was swimming every day, maybe between when I was in my mid 40s to my maybe early 50s, I was swimming every day and even competing in masters competition. And I got a lot from it, but I was doing it just to be active, and but it's fun, because you can see your progress and you are getting in shape, and So yeah, and it's fun to compete. So I got a lot of satisfaction from that. I'm not swimming today, but I'm doing. I do go to the gym at least 4 times a week, and I do spend about an hour. So it's something that I believe in and that I think is critical. I think it's as part of at least my personal balance.
Yeah, that's great, and it's great to hear, because many times we have those idea. No, you cannot, work, be successful, have your family, your network, and then do also train. But another amazing example you're setting here, Enrique. The last word, I'd love your reaction, is spread love in organizations.
Yeah, it's that's probably an easier one. The easier one from the questions. I think as you work, I think in the organizations, you closely with people, and when you align on purpose and objectives, and when you're committed to a cause or an objective, you tend to spend a lot of time with each one of our colleagues, and of course, as part of that, you develop a certain closeness, and I think all of us care for the people that are, for all of our colleagues that are working with us. And I think the way that I think about spreading and this is your quote, spreading love through the organization, is truly caring for people, and demonstrating that in a number of different ways. There are a number of maybe axioms or truths that one has to abide by. One of them is to really be completely truthful to people, and not just for people to hear what they want to hear, but truly what they should be hearing. And I know that sometimes people say, well, that's hard love. It is really not hard love. It is just truly caring about the person. Why would you want to say something to the person that is not really helping them? Maybe makes that interaction easier, but at the end, I think longer term, I think we're not, the person is not going to grow. So when it comes to spreading love or care, I think it starts with the intent, having the right intent, and having a transparent, honest relationship with your colleagues. I think that's the basis for that.
I love it. And I will definitely keep it in mind. It's not tough love, it's true love, which is definitely true. Any final word of wisdom for the leaders around the world?
No, thank you very much for you taking this initiative with this set of podcasts. It's exciting to see you again, and I'm glad that you're doing well. And once again, thank you for the opportunity to share some of these thoughts with you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and sharing part of your story and amazing advice, and for this inspiring, genuine discussion, Enrique. Thank you all for listening to Spread Love in Organizations podcast. Follow us on LinkedIn and social media, subscribe on your preferred podcast platform, and connect with us on SpreadLoveIO.com. Most importantly, spread love in your organizations and spread the word around you to inspire others and amplify this movement our world so desperately needs.